Well, hello there. I'm Luke, and I'm here with Matt. And welcome to our podcast, 10 Minutes That Make a Difference, where we take 10 minutes and we talk about topics where sort of life and faith intersect. And today we're going to be talking about love, about what it is that we love, and how much should we love that thing in particular. Like, are there things that should get more of our love than other things, right? Because I'm fond of saying that I love pizza, right?
Who doesn't?
Right? But I also love my family. And I mean two drastically different things when I say that. Because if I were to choose to say, oh, hey, Mom, like, I know it's like family dinner night and everything. Like, we haven't been together for a long time, but I love pizza so much that I'm actually just going to go over to Little Caesars and not come home tonight.
Yeah. I would wonder if you really loved pizza, though, because you went to Little Caesars for the pizza anyways.
Well, you know, gotta work with my budget, too. So, no, like, we mean different things when we say those things. And to put my love of pizza over top of my love of people and my family would be severely wrong.
Yep.
And I think this is essential to our human condition. I think we don't realize how much what we love dictates what we do. Jesus in Luke chapter 6, verse 45 says that the good person out of good treasure of his heart produces good, but an evil person out of the evil treasure of his heart produces evil. Like, I think we were talking last week about how progress and the things that we do, we kind of prop up and try and make moral decisions out of sort of fences around ourselves rather than addressing that internal thing.
Sure.
And I think that what we love affects our moral decisions more than anything else. Rather than giving ourselves rules, we ought to follow those rules because they fall in line with what we value, with what we love. Simple way of thinking about this is like with charity and courage, right? Those are two things that we think are valuable, right? We should be courageous people and we should be charitable people.
Of course.
But to do those charitable things and to be a courageous person requires a love that's outside of myself. Like if I'm going to give to someone, I have to love them in some way more than I love myself. But courage, like, I can be courageous and like do something that's self-sacrificing, even like a state of war. But there's no guarantee that I'm fighting for a just cause.
Sure.
And there's even ways that I can sneakily be charitable for my own selfish reason too.
Totally.
And so, Matt, how then do we kind of like, what are the effects of this? Like,
for sure,
of having loves that are out of order, and even trying to discern like, what is worthy of me giving my love?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I think it's fair to say that we all have an order to our loves. Like, even in your example of if you skip the family reunion to get pizza, that would just so obviously be a disordered love that anyone would see as ridiculous. And there are a lot of like loves that we see people choosing that you know, for all of us in society are like, well, that is clearly out of place. Like if someone has alcohol as a priority to a healthy degree, where they become an alcoholic, where they're choosing to feed that addiction, which again it is an addiction and is a struggle, but like when that addiction is essentially tearing up their family, it's preventing them from work. We'd say like this priority has come out of control, and it's become something that is completely problematic, and so we give it a word, like we give it an addiction. And really all addictions are things that are like good things, like good preferences, where it's become an ultimate thing, and it's just so clear the disorder of it. So gambling as well, like fine, if you're doing it for something that you enjoy, but like when it becomes this thing where we're in a poker match and we put our entire house on the table and we lose it,
we begin to sacrifice other people in our lives in order to get something.
Totally. And so it's just so obviously out of order. But then even things that are good, like good things, things that we should love, like when those become our first things, also like we can see the problem. So like work. We've mentioned this before, that like when we don't work, when we don't have a job, like it's really hard for our mental health, because like we all find a lot of meaning and purpose from work.
Absolutely.
But when work becomes our first love, we've all seen that story play out where there's like a divorce, or like a family is broken up because someone is spending all their time working, and it's become their first love, and it has an effect on those things that should be above them, like their family.
Sort of that classic Scrooge Christmas story mentality.
Absolutely. So, what can be our first love then? Well, I think like in the modern world, like we kind of have three, I guess, things that people typically choose as their first love. And so the first one that I want to say is self. I think this is becoming more and more popular of almost seeing it as like a virtue to have self be your first love. And so the virtue that how I've heard it said a lot is that you can't love others until you love yourself. And it's seen almost as like this proverb, like this piece of wisdom that unless you're loving yourself first, you can't possibly love others first.
I've definitely heard this.
Totally. And so there's this book that came out in 2013, Americana, really well-written book by this Nigerian-American woman. And kind of the point of the book, what it all comes down to is that this woman is in America, and then she goes back to Nigeria, where she's from. And she goes back there so that she can pursue this love of this love she had with her true love from childhood. And it's with this man who has a wife, has a family, and in the end of the book, he leaves his duty, he leaves his family, he leaves his wife in order to pursue his true love.
Yeah.
And what the book is really saying is that what's most important for you to pursue in life is your true happiness.
Yeah.
And that by pursuing his true love, that's the only way he's going to find that true happiness. And when he pursues that true love, then he'll be able to love others, love her, love other things as well. But it's until you pursue your first love, you can even find that happiness.
Yeah.
But when your happiness is your first love, yourself is your first love.
Yeah, and I think like we can put that in our fiction, right?
Yep.
And I definitely think it's showing up more and more. But we can frame it in a positive way. But it becomes a lot harder to frame that when we begin to think about the consequences of that and see it in the real world. I knew a man who met a woman and he fell in love with her when he was already married and had a family. Yeah. And he said, no, like, this is my true love. This is the woman I should have married. This is who I want to marry. And so I'm going to divorce my wife. I'm going to leave my family because I'm not going to be happy unless I do so. And God wouldn't want me to be unhappy. And so when he think that sounds nice for him, but it left his family in a lot of pain and a lot of hurt. And rather than seeking to truly love, I think like a popular way that people talk about love, and we even fall into thinking about love, is love as being synonymous with desire.
Makes sense.
Exactly. Like I desire you. I love you. And what I mean by that is I want you. I want you to give me things. I want things out of this relationship. And that's really selfish, right? Like a desirous love can be possessive and doesn't love the person for who they are. It loves them for what they can give me. Love, true love, in its purest form, I think, is self-giving. It's love is where we give out of ourselves and give to other people without necessarily taking into concern whether or not they will give back to us in turn. Yeah.
Yeah, so when we love ourselves first, like even as our society sees some beauty in it, there's still we still have negative words for it, like selfish or self-absorbed. So clearly that can't be our first love.
No, we're not all supposed to be narcissists.
No, and because literally all human conflict comes from a selfishness. All war, all conflict comes, the basis of it is selfishness. So not the best love.
No.
The other two loves that I see as options for our society are our partner, a love partner, or family. So I'll first mention partner. Any Justin Bieber song, any popular love song today, it's all about how this other person completes us.
Yep.
And yet it's obvious to see the problems with that. It creates this codependency where you're not actually doing those things with the person because you love them for their sake. Like you're doing it because you want them to continue to give things to you.
Yeah.
And as a pastor, I do a lot of marriage counseling or premarital counseling, and people always have this fear that if I really love the other person first, I'm going to be walked all over.
Oh, yeah.
But what's really happening there is that when you are letting someone else walk all over you, it's not because you're loving them so much, but it's because you're loving yourself first. And so you're afraid of the conflict, afraid of how they might respond to you. And so you're you're actually not loving them well. You're loving yourself.
Right. You're avoiding conflict
Totally.
instead of doing it in a loving way.
Yeah. And so I think you need something both outside of you and outside of that partner in your love. And so at other times, people say, okay, well, maybe that's what family should be like, loving our kids, our parents, other people. And those are all good things. That should be like a very high love on your order of loves. And yet, kind of just the total reality is that like life is temporary. Life is not forever. Like not only that you're gonna, if your children are your first love, not only that you're gonna just crush them with your expectations or the ways that you're trying to live vicariously through them, but if your family is your first love, like what happens when they die?
Yeah.
Like where is your purpose? If all of your life has been put into your children, like what happens if your children unfortunately die before you? Like clearly there's this vulnerability for your love. So all that to say, Luke, is like, okay, we're pastors and we're going to say God is our first love, but like what difference does it make? Like why does it matter that God is our first love?
Right. I think like what you were just talking about, Matt, this like crushing that anything that we make as our first love happens to it. Like if I make some one person my absolute first love and they must love me back, crushes them. That's way too much expectation to put on something. And I think I've said before and I've read elsewhere that like we are finite, right? We're limited people, except for when it comes to what we desire. We will always desire more. And I think that is a key. I think that cues us in to the fact that if we desire something that is infinite, something that cannot be satisfied, then we must meet that need in something that is limitless, that is infinite. And that's truly only God can fill that and meet those requirements. St. Augustine talked a lot about this topic of ordering loves. And he said that you have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our heart is restless until it finds rest in you.
That's good.
He's talking about this, like just this anxiousness, this true need that we have that just won't leave us. Like we know that people who get married still are lonely, still desire. And when even they have children and those children succeed, still desire for more.
For sure.
And like that's a restlessness. And I think when we love God first, we find a God who is love, right? That's how the Bible describes him. And when we do that, we find that God has loved us first. Even before we loved God, he loved us. And we find that we have an infinite God who is inexhaustible, who loves us so deeply. And I think that fills that void that we all sort of feel in our heart at moments. And when that void is filled, that's when we're able to give love. We're able to give love of ourselves. We're also able to give God's love to other people.
For sure.
And that's where true love comes from, I think.
It's almost when we love God first as our first love, he's not only able to handle it, but actually helps us to love all those other things better. Because we're not asking too much of them.
Absolutely.
We can love them on their own terms and love them without first wanting something from them.
It allows a true selflessness.
That's really helpful. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us this week for 10 Minutes That Make a Difference. Next week, we're going to be looking at, I think, a real important question of one that we all wrestle with in regards to suffering of, like, why do bad things happen to good people? So I hope you'll join us for that. If you've enjoyed your time with us today, or if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, whatever, please leave us a comment at the webpage
at villagechurchchicago.org or on the video that you're watching.
Absolutely. Well, hope to see you next time.